Welcome back, everyone. It is Eric from Rare Candy, and today we have a little bit of an unexpected video. In the middle of the night, we saw Japan reveal the first batch of cards from their new Scarlet and Violet set, Triplet Beat, which, as you can see, is going to be coming out in March. That being said, it's still probably going to be a while before we get these cards internationally. Scarlet and Violet is going to drop internationally in March as well, so it'll probably be another 3 or 4 months after that. So expect these in the summer. But as you can see, it looks like these starters are going to be sort of the focal point here. So I'm hoping for some pretty good EXs for all these cards. And if nothing else, hopefully they are a little bit better than the single prize evolutions that we are going to be getting in the Scarlet and Violet base set. But that being said, guys, remember to smack that like button, feed that always hungry YouTube algorithm, and let's jump in and check out these brand new cards. Alrighty, so it looks like Meowscarada EX is going to be up first here. Stage 2 Pokemon has this ability. You must discard a grass energy from your hand in order to use this ability. Once during your turn, you may choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and put 3 damage counters on it. Okay, so pretty good ability that we have here. And this does stack too, so if we do have 4 Meowscaradas in play, though I'm kind of skeptical of that, this being a stage 2. But if we have multiple of these in play, we can actually do this multiple times, so that's definitely pretty cool. For 2 colorless energy, there's 100, but if they have any damage counters on it, they take 120 more. Okay. So it definitely gives me big vibes of like Hisuian Samurott V-Star, very similar sort of thing we have going here. But I definitely see some pros and cons for this compared to Samurott. Like, obviously the big pros, you have the built-in damage placing effect, whereas Samurott just has a one-time V-Star power. So that's cool. We also have more HP than Samurott, but even though this attack is just a double turbo energy, the issue is if you're playing double turbos, that starts eating into the consistency of this ability. And so you almost kind of want to play just grass energy to maximize your odds of being able to just keep looping these grass energies pretty consistently. And then the other issue I have is, well, if we're not playing double turbo, that means we probably have to play something like Gardenia's Vigor or maybe Raihan as well, but Gardenia definitely seems like the best partner, which also has its own issues because it's only for bench Pokemon. And I think even though there's a good bit of support for this, it seems like it's kind of awkward to get going. And that's on top of the fact that this is a stage 2. I mean, even if this was a V-Star and effectively like a stage 1, I think this would still be a little bit awkward to get set up. But again, guys, this is only going to be a small snapshot of all of the cards we're getting in this set. So there very well could be some other support that might make these styles of Pokemon a little bit easier to get set up. And another quick negative in my mind for this card is that even if we are getting the full 220 without the double turbo energy reduction, we're still a bit off from being able to one-shot Pokemon V-Star. I guess if we have several Meowscaradas in play, eventually we'll stack that damage up high enough to, pick off a Pokemon without needing 2 separate attacks. But this card just seems awkward, even though I like it. So cautiously optimistic maybe for this card going forward. All right, we have Paldean Tauros, the first one at least. I think there's a couple of others in this set too. And man, this artwork has no business going as hard as that actually does here. But let's see this guy. 2 colors, does 20 plus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Okay, so you guys can see what they want you to do here. They want you to stack a bunch of damage with things like Magma Basin, maybe even use like... not damage mover, damage pump, to make me manipulate some damage counter. So with like Gengars and Magma Basins, I guess there's a world where you can get this thing up and going. It seems, you're probably never hitting for a lot of damage with this guy though. So we have Oricorio here, and has an ability says once during your turn, you can heal 20 from your active evolution Pokemon. Okay, so this is kind of just like a worse version of Radiant Serena in some ways, because Radiant Serena's heal 20 from each of your Pokemon, and not just evolutions. But I guess the upside to Oricorio is that you can play this in addition to Radiant Serena, or you could play this and free up your Radiant Pokemon to be maybe Greninja or something else, maybe a little bit more preferable for your deck. So it's not like the worst thing in the world, but it might be outclassed by Serena potentially, but still lovable, searchable. And like I said, there are a couple of applications maybe for this thing. So one thing I will point out real quick about the Skeledirge line is that everything has 3 retreat here. So I'm wondering if we're going to get like a heavy ball reprint in this set. That's something, that could potentially make the 3 retreat Fuecoco here the optimal one to go for. But Skeledirge EX definitely is going to be the star of this evolution line here. So whopping 340 HP. That's pretty insane. That's right up there with Eternatus VMAX for the most HP in the game. So that's already off to a good start. First attack does 50. You heal 30 from each of your Pokemon. That's fine. But the second attack for 2 fire does 270, minus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Obviously, you're probably playing Magma Basin in your deck. So I think the idea here is, you know, you're probably going to Magma Basin one energy, attach the other, and you're going to be hitting for 250, which even that is fine because with a belt, you're still one-shotting Pokemon V-Star. So I think that's honestly a pretty solid attack. And unlike Pokemon V and V-Star, because this evolves from, you know, just a small little 90 HP, 80 HP Pokemon, your opponent's not going to be able to like preemptively get a hit in on your Fuecoco to really do a ton of damage reduction. But this card honestly doesn't seem that bad. We can also play things like Cheryl, because with the Armarouge in Scarlet and Violet, you could, you know, tank a hit, it reduces all your damage, share all the energy off, Magma Basin to your Armarouge, move that fire to the active, and attach your manual attachment for turn, and keep on swinging with this guy. I mean, I guess this is a stage 2 at the end of the day, which does sort of curb my enthusiasm a little bit, because we're talking about playing probably a pretty thick stage 2 line, and maybe like a 1/1, 2/2 Armarouge, in addition to any consistency cards. So that's something we might have to contend with being a stage 2, but I think the attack and the HP as well definitely, I think, are pretty solid, and definitely will be experimenting with this card when it comes out. Okay, we have another Paldean Tauros. This is going to be the water one. Same first attack. This one's probably a bit worse since it's not a Pokemon you can play with Magma Basin. And then the second attack is pretty bad. So I think these Tauros cards are seeming to strike out so far. Okay, so next up we have Quaquaval EX here, so 320 HP. Lightning weakness is definitely a bummer since Miraidon EX is probably one of the 2 best new archetypes we're getting in Scarlet and Violet, so you might have to watch out for that. First attack, 60, you switch this with one of your bench Pokemon, then your opponent switches their active with one of their bench Pokemon. So that's cool. We can switch maybe into things like Klefki. That definitely seems like it could be good. So you do 60, you just poke at your opponent for a turn, throw up Klefki, make sure they can't use their abilities on their basics. Could be an R8 attack here. This other attack, 230, put 2 energy from this Pokemon into your hand. So I think I see what they're trying to do with this thing. If you remember, we do have a Quaquaval coming out in Scarlet and Violet, which has an ability that allows you to accelerate a single energy from hand to one of your Pokemon. So I think they want you to get out both of these, attach for turn, then use the other one to accelerate your second energy onto this thing. I mean, there are other ways of getting energy in play. We have Frostlass still in the format. There's Origin Palkia's V-Star power, of course. But I'm not riding too high on this thing just because 230 also isn't really close to getting a one-shot on like Pokemon V-Star. And effectively, if you're not able to take one-shots with this, 230 at that point is no different than like, I don't know, 180 really. So, all right card. I don't think this is special though. And the last Paldean Tauros, again, same attack, but again, pretty bad if it's not going to be on the fire one. And then 130. Now, this one's not the worst thing in the world just because this can one-shot Miraidon. This is probably the best second attack out of all of the Tauros, I think. Okay, so right out the gate, for our trainer cards, we have a reprint of a very powerful card that we had many formats ago. That's Superior Energy Retrieval. So you have to discard 2 cards from your hand, but you get 4 basic energies from your discard back into your hand. So I think clearly they want you to play this with cards like Meowscarada EX, or even the Quaquaval EX, since the other Quaquaval can accelerate the energy you get back from discard. My issue with this, though, is there's not too many cards I think we have in the format that are really good energy accelerators in the way a card like Blastoise or Emboar was back in the day. We're losing Frostmoth in the rotation. I think we're losing the Dark Hydreigon, which does something like this. Maybe there's another card that I'm just blanking on just off the top of my head here, but I'm not sure the deck that Superior Energy Retrieval really specifically is going to help a lot here. That being said, definitely a solid card. I would still be pretty confident this will pop up in decks at different points. Okay, we have Dendra here. New support says put a card from your hand on the bottom of your deck, then draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So I do like that they allow you a way at reducing your hand size, because that's the issue with a lot of these draw until sort of supporters and effects, is that, you know, if you have a big clunky hand already, then it's kind of hard to draw many cards with these effects. Now, that being said, this is just, am I mistaken? Is this just a worse Karina's Focus? Because Karina, it doesn't allow you to put a card back, but you draw until you have 6. So I think effectively you're doing the same thing, but if you already have, like, if you play yourself down to a 0 card hand, you can draw more with Karina's Focus than you can this. So this seems like a strict downgrade from that for the moment. Now, on the flip side, I think Quaquaval here is actually a strict upgrade to another card, well, most of the time, that we have in the format. That is going to be Gloria. So with Quaquaval here, we get 3 basic Pokemon with 120 HP or less, put them into our hand, shuffle our deck. So if we compare that to Gloria, Gloria is 3 basics onto your bench that don't have a rule box, if I remember correctly. So the fact that these go straight to hand, incredible, because the Pokemon that don't have rule boxes are going to have 120 less HP anyways, almost all the time. And now you can put them into your hand, which is great because maybe you can play cards like the Hawlucha from Scarlet and Violet that place damage counters whenever they come to your hand. Whereas with a card like Gloria, you wouldn't be able to get that effect. Also, you can thin if you have a full bench. So I think this is probably most of the time an upgrade to that. But the issue still is that we can't play supporter cards on turn 1 at this time in the game. So unless we see a supporter like this that has a clause on it that says we can play this on like the first turn, I'm still not sure how often this card is going to see play when we have other things like Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, or even Battle VIP Pass. Okay, we have a new stadium. This is going to be Artisan Town or Artisan Town. Not sure how we pronounce that. It says once during each player's turn, that player may search the deck for a basic Pokemon, excluding Pokemon that have a rule box, and play it on their bench. Then that player shuffles their deck. So this card is definitely up my alley. Anytime we get cards that don't help multi-prize Pokemon, always a dub in my book. And this actually is kind of similar to the Mesa Goza card we just saw in Scarlet and Violet. It's a little bit different just because this is only basics and it's not a coin flip. But nevertheless, I do think they fill kind of a similar role in a lot of cases. But I guess the big downside to this card is that your opponent almost always is going to also use this card. This stadium definitely disproportionately benefits your opponent more than some of the other ones in the format, especially if we compare this to like Stormy Mountains, which does something very similar. That one's only limited to Lightning and Dragon Pokemon. So if you're playing that in your deck, most decks that you go against aren't going to be able to use that stadium against you. Whereas this is a very generic effect that any deck can really make use of. But that being said, this is still a good effect. I'm just curious if players are going to be afraid to also give their opponent sort of the same effect. But hey, any way to get more Pokemon in play and get set up better is definitely, I think, a welcome effect for the game. And for our last new card, we have Luminous Energy. So new special energy. It provides all types of energies, but if the Pokemon this card is attached to has any other special energy attached to it, this card only provides a colorless instead. So I forget what it does exactly, or I forget the exact text, but I think this is almost identical to the old multi-energy, I think it is, back from like the old EX era. Feel free to correct me if I'm misremembering that, but that was a very powerful card back during its day, and this is definitely a welcome effect since we are losing Aurora Energy, and we don't really have anything else like that. Now, unfortunately, I think players who like the Reggie deck, who like Lugia, that were hoping for some good special energy to start trickling out in Scarlet and Violet to be able to, you know, re-energize those decks after rotation, might be a little bit disappointed with this because those types of decks really do want like multiple different special energies attached, and this really doesn't allow you to do something like that. Now, despite that, guys, I think this is still a solid card. Almost all of these sort of like rainbow energy style effects have seen play throughout the course of the TCG. And especially with no other similar effects like this right now in the game, I'm pretty confident this will pop up and see some play. But that being said, guys, that's going to be our first batch of cards from Triplet Beat. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, these cards are still quite a ways away, and this is only a small fraction of what's going to be in the set. So the playability of these cards could definitely ebb and flow a little bit by the time we see the full set. And we haven't even started the Scarlet and Violet post-rotation format, so a lot of things definitely can change by the time these come out. But nevertheless, feel free to let me know down below in the comment section which of these new cards today you are most excited for. I think me personally, I do like Luminous Energy. I do have a little bit of hope for Meowscarada and Skeledirge EX as well. But other than that, I don't think we saw anything too groundbreaking today. But of course, if you did enjoy today's content, as always, remember to leave a like on the video. And if you're feeling a little bit extra generous and want to take that support to the next level, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg or pick up some merch at rarecandytcg.com. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.